Walk with me through the cellar door. A storm is coming, Francis. A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to another Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We have an amazing show planned for you, and I apologize for the music just dying.
Do you though?
Intended.
You killed it. You killed it.
I did, and I did not mean to.
Did you divide by
way,
zero again?
Everybody loves imaginary numbers, again? Keith.
I thought that was how you opened a wormhole in the universe.
Only if you're dividing by zero on your tax forms.
Anyway, look like I'm rich enough?
What happens when you go from having 5 days off of work to having to go back to work? It's not fun. We'll just put it that way. So today's been a struggle bus for me.
There's a lot of people that were walking around with kind of muddy brains today.
Yeah. And that's essentially what I've kind of ran into a little bit. So.
Yep. Like I'm rich enough. Oh, Jesus. Don't mind me. I just got nervous stopping.
Welcome to audio control issues today.
Yeah, this is what happens when you work off of two different machines. Because,
you guys are both fancy pantsy and you got two computers going at once.
Well,
I guess my PlayStation 3 next to me would be another computer, but that thing doesn't really come to life very much.
You can't consider that a computer.
I know. I missed the entire generation. 5 is out now, and I didn't even buy a 4. That shows you where I am as far as having kids and being able to play games. It's so frustrating. I mean, I could probably find a way to make it work, but I don't know.
Anyway, so how is before we get into the show, we have a great show plan. We're gonna talk about the future plan that the Biden team has supposedly put together. They don't call it their 100-day plan, but I'm guessing that's what this is. So I'm just gonna go with it and claim that that's what this is, and we'll see, if it truly is or not. And we're gonna dissect it, and it's not gonna be the same way that people think. We're not obviously just gonna go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We're gonna actually look at it and say, can he accomplish this? Is this fluff? And what do we need to do to better the conversation? We also have an amazing science segment and a Canadian segment. Then Keith is back with us this week. So.
Yeah, well, I would have much rather been here last week than dealing with the mess I was dealing with.
All's well that ends well, my good sir.
Yeah, without going too deep into it, my wife's work, they shut down a good chunk of her. Actually, they shut down her entire side of things because one person tested positive for COVID and they all got exposed at a meeting. So my wife got tested twice last week. Both are negative. She's still in isolation as per the recommendations. It's just a precautionary measure to make sure that, the 2 weeks go by without anything showing up, which is at this point, this is the funny thing about me realizing as an atheist, I can't even go, oh, thank you. Because it's like, I mean, on the one hand, I can, because in a sense, I'm looking at like the universe and being like, this is where I live, and these are the good things that came to me from the universe. I should be grateful for this. But then I remember that the universe is cold, cared, just doesn't give a damn. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just happy about it.
Yeah. Statistics sometimes work in your favor. That's pretty much how I have to look at it.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is like, and what is a common symptom of anxiety, or a common thing that people say happens during anxiety? A shortness of breath. Well, what's the number one or one of the biggest symptoms with COVID? Shortness of breath. So it's just a matter of trying to balance the realization that, maybe this anxiety is just fueling itself right the hell up in the vicious cycle from hell. But
did you guys find out late enough that you actually had to do quarantine too? So you guys both doing it together, or is it?
No. So on the one hand, thankfully, I it didn't end up being extended to me, mostly because she didn't show any symptoms, and she didn't test positive. So all I had to do was just make sure that I was being extraordinarily careful. And I mean, I've already got a thing, a sanitizer that I take with me everywhere. I've got 2 masks with me at all times, plus a bunch of other ones that I've picked up in my car. So it's not like I'm not covered and doing my part. It's just I had to be a little extra careful, and I don't really go anywhere these days anyways. But it does suck because with her being in isolation, like the first day was the worst because like I could hear how like just crushed she was, and I couldn't even give her a hug because I have to be 6 feet away from her. I still do, but at least now I'm not like, you're like falling apart at the seams. Now it's you're just getting through this. I'm just getting through this. We'll get through this together, but on the other side of the room from each other.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of like, it's a little bit like the, our Thanksgiving here in the States. We're not supposed to be seeing anybody else. So, it's similar, except for I didn't have to sit on the other side of the room for my wife. She might have went to the other side of the room a couple of times after dinner, but it wasn't because I had COVID.
Now there is something else coming out of your body that we don't want to talk about.
It could be. I won't deny or undeny. So get this. So before we get
tangent time for bodily.
Yeah, no, we're not going to talk about that. But
okay.
Well, before we get into the show though, like, so Thanksgiving I did something different because like I had to cook the turkey, right? It's just us at home. There isn't, I don't have to cater as much, or worry about. And a lot of times my parents make it, and I just bring sides or a pie and call it a day. They're very peculiar. So I brined the turkey, and then I cooked it in the oven. I did something different. I didn't know this, but somebody told me to cook the turkey at like 500 degrees to get all that fat juices, and then drop it down to like 300. And then I used my temperature probe. But the unique thing is usually green bean casserole is always on the menu, but it's never very healthy, let's just say, per se, right? Because
all the cream of mushroom soup and all that stuff in it.
Yeah, it's not in make a mushroom soup, which I'm not gonna do. Just not gonna do that. But on the other hand, I made stuffed mushrooms with turkey stuffing and a little bit of sausage and onion and cream cheese, and they were amazing. And I made like 10 of them, and then that replaced our green bean casserole. And they're like, I don't know, they're like 55 calories, 60 calories a piece or something like that. That's it. So
just a nice healthy little stuffed ball of flavor. I don't know, just doing something different, doing something you've never done before always is a good time. I mean, right now we're getting a nice storm in here, so if the power or something happens on my end, that's going to be the reason. There's a full-on winter storm advisory coming through Cleveland, and I'm on the edge of what is called a snow band, which is the start of the stuff that hits Buffalo. So it's sometimes I'll get just an absolutely absurd snow, and sometimes it'll be like, oh, I was just on the edge of it. But so yeah, but like I got up on a 24-foot ladder and I hung lights on the house and full on Chevy chased it this weekend. And the hanging lights that I have right now are like swinging wildly on the edge of my window because it's pretty windy out there too. So we'll see.
Now, if you don't projectile launch and ice spear through your neighbor's window, does that count as going full Chevy Chase or just like 70%?
It's whether or not you hang yourself with the lights in the front yard and you're swinging from the tree or whatever.
Dark, unless the lights are lit up, in which case it's festive.
No, I'm pretty sure his whole body was tangled up in it, if I remember right. Not quite as dark.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, you're right. Not as dark.
But yeah, no, it was. So we did the light thing, and my girls were happy with that. And Thanksgiving was cool. I catered in, so I went to a smokehouse right down the street from me, and they smoked a whole turkey. And I don't have a smoker big enough capable of doing that, and so I had smoked turkey and oven for 350 to finish it off and crisp it. My goodness, is the best turkey I've ever had in my life. I will be buying a smoker, a good one, in the near future for me, because that was one of the best things I've ever, one of the best Thanksgiving meals I've ever had. So I don't know, it was a really enjoyable weekend, spending time with the family and everything. It's nice to just, I mean, it was the longest 4 days I can remember for Thanksgiving because it didn't involve any traveling. So like every hour was spent just at home. So like this holiday season, I got 16 days in a row off.
Ooh.
It's gonna be like I'm gonna be like Robin Williams and Jumanji. What day is it? What year is it? At the end of it. And so maybe I'll let my beard grow out the entire time and see if I can even come anywhere near what Tanner seems to be able to grow every week now. It just appears like he'll just appear. It's just twice as big. I don't understand how you do it.
You put a little bit of oil in it and you don't
Thicken it
trim
up.
it. Yeah, that's how that works. You don't trim it like you used to, you know?
I'm still baby faced, man. I'm 31, but I don't grow it thick enough to look like once it's grown out that I should be within 100 yards of a school. It's just that's why I don't participate in Movember.
If I let mine grow out, I have random people yell at me. That's why mommy and daddy named you Joe Dirt instead of Niedermeyer.
Oh, fair enough. Well, to get into our first segment, right, is, we wanted to talk about the transition. So, I guess officially, I think it's official now. Trump has officially said he's leaving on the 21st. Is it official? No?
He hasn't officially said it, but everybody around him has said it's going on full speed.
Yeah,
like the GSA, the General Service GSA gave him, access to funds for the transition. So like all the pieces are moving except for the one guy whose ego is so big he can't possibly accept defeat, even though they're gonna walk him out of there.
Even
It's
though
tail
defeat
between his
has
legs.
admitted him.
So
Yeah,
what I wanted to do, go ahead.
No, I was just running my mouth, so carry on.
But
Well, the recount got more votes in Wisconsin and whatever. So
well,
good for.
I wanted to talk about that, but I just don't because we've harped on it so much. And actually, there's a article going around, and it's been shared by some of my Republican friends, and I've challenged them because they offer a lot of statistics that are saying the improbabilities of what's happened this election are so abnormal. We should at minimum be concerned, right? And so I don't disagree if the statistics state that, right? But the question then becomes, if that's true, where are the statistics? Because the guy has no links, nothing. There's nothing in there, all except for raw numbers. And, last week or 2 weeks ago, I did my COVID rant. And in my COVID rant, what did I give? Statistics and numbers. And then I gave the links to them. So, I don't know. It is what it is. So I'm not going to go through that until we have more time to actually look at whether his statistics are very true or very false. and how tainted his statistics are. So we'll see if I get any Republican friends of mine come back. But what was interesting in this is I wanted to talk about their Build Back Better, which is a disgusting name. I cannot stand it. It's a tongue twister. I guess he used this on the campaign road. It's not a new thing. And I can't say it very well.
It's weird because it actually was picked up and used almost all over the world. There were people that were picking up little spots where you would see those three things just in places you wouldn't expect them, in countries and with people that you didn't expect. It was really strange. I'll have to look up the graphic for it, but I was like, okay, whatever. We'll move on past the slogan, the old Hitchens diatribes about how we're basically simplifying political language into a series of buzzwords that we feed to each other every year, and they're completely and utterly meaningless sentences or acronyms or whatever. And he's finally starting to fill out what he's doing, is what it looks like.
Yes, and originally what I wanted to do was actually take the policies and then look at his cabinet and all of the people he's nominated so far. But I think what we'll do today is, because he hasn't nominated enough people yet, that I think it matters. So we're going to look through this, and then what we're going to do is, once we get more cabinet nominations, we're going to come back to this, and we're going to say, can you really do this? Are you able to do this? Because to me, if you're not able to accomplish what you're setting out, and again, we're going to get into, he has racial equality on here, right? Oh. That's big. And I apologize, I chipped a tooth, so I have a little bit of a slur today, because your
tongue's getting into the hole.
It's very sore. It's very sore.
Well, one of the things that we don't even know who's going to be in charge of the Senate because it is actually up for grabs depending on the outcome of the runoffs in Georgia, which is going to be insane because two parties literally fighting for control of one third of the government. Like, it's a big deal. There's going to be more money flying into Georgia, and that's literally going to change all of the things that'll be possible or not possible on this list. If McConnell's in charge or if he isn't in charge, changes everything.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
I can only hope he is no longer in charge. He kind of needs to go.
I want him to get on a rocket ship to go to the moon.
I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately, right away.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Hey, but I'm hoping. Here's hoping, right? Let's hope.
Cheers.
All right,
Hope he changey.
We'll go through the COVID first, I guess. So, essentially, there's a lot of fluff in here. Like, he promises he's going to listen to science. I don't care. I'm going to step. Nope, I don't care about ensuring public health decisions are informed by health officials. Like, does he just have to say this because of Trump? Is it like?
I think it's sad, but yeah, I think so. And honestly, like, we're living under a mini Trump ourselves here, and yeah, it would be nice if a leader could actually be proven to listen to science and let public health officials actually make proper recommendations that you can tell the public health official is saying them through gritted teeth, going, I think you guys are stupid, but I know if I speak my mind, you're going to get rid of me and replace me with somebody worse. I'm going to say it's kind of refreshing.
The NPR Politics podcast was basically saying something alluding to this a little while ago when I was listening to him. Basically saying that everything Biden is doing, it's short. It's been looked over. A bunch of people are putting input in. They're finalizing and polishing a message. Everything is going to be concise and to the point, and it's going to be simple at the start because we have to rebuild the trust. And I think that's definitely going to be a start here. Like, it's really going to be him just saying, okay, we're going to start slow because it's been on fire.
I don't know, though.
I think that's what they have to do. It's kind of.
I disagree with you. I don't think I think maybe they need to go slow, and I'm okay with that. But I don't think you don't have to give in-depth information.
Oh,
right?
No, that's not what they're saying. But they're just trying to make it seem like it's under control. Like with Trump, when he decided to do a press conference, there was always a big chunk of, we have no idea what's going to happen in the next 30 seconds. Like, you know what I mean? Like Biden, it's not going to be as unpredictable or even close to as unpredictable. I really think it's going to be polished and controlled, and it's going to be like a close to the vest politician like they've always been, minus a few eccentric fellas. But I don't know.
Well, and so the thing here, right, is he does lay out a 7-point plan to beat COVID, right? I think that's pretty impressive, honestly. And we'll get into the points here in a second. So what I want to do is, like, the first one says double the drive-through testing numbers. So the blogger of our show here has homework to do this week. Is he's got to go through which ones, and I'll highlight them in our doc. But I want you to go through and do the research to find out the information on these, because what we can do then is we can then benchmark this in a year, let's say. Let's just say in a year. And in a year, if he has doubled, great. He did what he was supposed to do. And in a year, if the drive-through testing sites are nil and void, there you go. Now we know he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So,
this is the 100-day plan.
Kind of. They haven't labeled it specifically. Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was putting the accurate timeline on it.
Yeah, no, I would just say is if your goal is to just look up today what it specifically is, right? What today is the number of testing sites on average in the States. I don't really care personally if it's 100, great. If it's 1,000, great. If there's a way to find that out, if there's not even a way to find it out, that's the note for it then, right? Then you go, well, I can't find this out. This doesn't exist. Because then we have no way of benchmarking him. And that's my problem. Yeah. Like, we talked about on the show for the last 2 weeks, how are we going to change so we don't have to go back and have a Biden administration? And if the Biden administration, as conservative as it is, actually does some of these things that we agree with, we should at least acknowledge that the Democrats are shifting farther, left at least in how they interact and handle policy change with those of us who are complaining very loudly, or as loudly as we can. We don't have money, so I can't walk in with $1 million and be like, boom, new super PAC. I want, this to happen. Can't do it.
Well, there's that also, and like, so one of the things he says there, the way what you say is important. So double the number of drive-through testing sites. That's fine. What's the turnaround on those tests? If they're 48, 72 hours, somewhere in that window, which a lot of these kinds of tests are, they're pointless. They're useless, and they do nothing to help anyone at all. Because in that time period, unless you voluntarily go hide in a box during that time when it's pending, it does nothing, because by the time you find out, you've already infected a whole bunch of people. So like the time of these tests, the speed of these tests, whether or not they're rapid response tests, antigen tests, all that kind of stuff matters. So like these are the very specific details that's a great thing to say. It looks great on a headline. Whether or not it's actually going to change anything is another question.
Yeah. And like some of these in here, like, we won't get into a lot, like they have a lot of detail behind them. They want to invest in next generation testing. I don't think that specifically is something that we can actually, we can't benchmark that really, right? I mean, that's anything that's an improvement over today is he immediately gets that point, right? And fuck him. I don't care,
It'll be one of those things that like science isn't going to get worse on those tests. They'll get faster and better. Just how fast it will get better.
But I think if in business terms, if we talk business terms, which is just that's where I live in my whole world, I can say this is a benchmarkable, thing. Technically, standing up stand up a pandemic testing board would be, but he doesn't say. He just says stand up. He doesn't actually say he's going to create a board that's going to do this, this, and this, and maybe that's what that means. I don't know, I mean, to me, I don't think so, but I don't think that's benchmarkable,
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because I bet you the information they're pulling from each state is probably not even reliable. Because like when I do some basic searches, like you can get some basic information from Ohio, you can get basic information, but also a lot of people don't want to put this specific exact number out there because then people can hold your feet to the fire. Like this is how many was here. Why haven't we changed that? It's been 6 months. Like a lot of these kinds of things, like unless it's the National Institute of Health or it's Pew or some of the other foundations, which are known for being more reliable when it comes to the specifics and data-driven information, it's going to be hard to be able to confirm or deny that stuff because most politicians don't want to put a number down and then get screwed because they said a number.
Yeah. I agree with you. But I think
I'll
think
try
it's
to find it.
important
See if we
look
can
at
find
it.
something.
All right, there we go. The next one is fix PPP or PPE problems, right?
We down with OPP.
Yeah, I'm down with the OPP, and the PPP loan helped businesses stay afloat if you made over billions of dollars.
Dude, I really wish that would have been like someone did like a cover song like Weird Al cover. That would be amazing. You down with OPPP?
Anyways, all right. So this he's saying he's going to fully use the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of mass face shields. And again, this is I can't benchmark this. This is BS. To me, this is BS prompt right here.
Well, Trump used it a little bit because basically what it does is it takes production methods and literally the defense can appropriate production from some companies. It's one of the things that they threatened to do with GM and some of the automotive makers trying to get them to make ventilators. So
yep, I know because we had that whole conversation where GM and Ford were like, no, we're okay with this. We want to help, and Trump's like, no, I had to force.
No, they're fighting me. Yeah, I know. Make it look like he's a big tough guy pushing people around.
The next point for that one was build immediately towards your future. Like if he sat there and said, I'm going to reinstate the I can't remember the name of it, but whatever Obama had in place, like a crisis
pandemic
response team, pandemic team. Then I would agree. This again, so this point right here is BS. Great, good for you, Biden. Soft. It means nothing to any of us.
Softballing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The next one is provide clear, consistent, evidence-based guidance for how communities should navigate the pandemic. Okay. That on the surface, that sounds great.
Yeah,
you
just
know?
a guided national response. Everything is states doing their own thing, and the national response is just like, so that would be nice because a lot of places are saying like we need guidance from
Yeah,
the Fed, and we're not getting any.
yeah. Instead of allowing each, so what this is telling me, and you could correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, but to what this is telling me is he's essentially going to top down drive how he wants each state to handle it.
Yeah,
That's what it feels like to me.
he'll let someone like Fauci create a series of guidelines that would be nationally given. It's like everyone, this is the national guideline for how to deal with school problems, work problems, pandemic spikes, exposures. Like they'll go through and they'll create a state driven. Here's what the state says you should do, and then the schools, because the schools are always saying, well, we don't really know what we're supposed to do. Someone please tell us. And this is going to be Biden trying to create the basic checklist for all the really big emergencies that we might run into.
Yep. So I think we can move on from that one. I think that's it. So if that comes out, we
That's
know
awesome.
he satisfied it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to worry about this package here. I mean, I think it's great, to be honest with you, if they do that. But I don't think that that's a benchmark, and this one's going to be very hard to actually do.
With Betsy DeVos out of there, maybe it'll be easier.
Yeah, but
All right. Good zinger. The next one is plan for effective, equitable distribution of treatments, vaccines, because development isn't enough if they aren't effectively distributed. Right?
This is true.
So he's going to invest $25 billion in manufacturing distribution. This is the key, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Free of cost to every American. So if that's the case, then to me, that in this one, that's probably a benchmarkable thing. I don't think we can benchmark how much money he's going to invest in distribution. We'll never know. That'll be so hard to track. The other thing he said is ensure that politics play no role, and I get it, but again, like this is going to be very hard. I think he's trying to say here is I'm not going to tell you to drink bleach.
which I mean, again, that is a serious step up, and that is so sad.
So for me, the benchmark is free of cost vaccines and widely available.
Yep.
Yeah. Plain and simple.
All right. Hannah, take the next one.
So the next thing we have on protect older Americans and others at high risk. This is kind of like connected to the distribution of the vaccines, right? So like those are going to be the first people that are going to get it, and so he's going to be giving those people, high risk and older Americans, their vaccinations first, with the frontline workers in healthcare. Like those are going to be the first groups of people to get it. Recently, something that Fauci said that it's going to be months before it's going to be basically approved for just kids. So they're not as high risk, but also that's going to be an area where they're going to be absolutely certain the side effects are not going to be really bad. So it's going to take longer because usually we have a couple of years that we go through with these vaccinations to see the long-term effects. So we're skipping that, and a lot of people are taking a risk, but this is a risk that most of the scientists say is definitely worth it. So basically what he's going to be looking at also in this is establishing COVID-19 racial and ethnic disparities task force. And this is something that they've been pushing a lot, is that minority communities are hit way harder, one, because of healthcare deserts and a lot of other things like that. But like there's a very big disproportionate effect in minority communities and inner city communities of the people that are getting sick versus everyone else. And so it's statistically driven, and this will be something that without question is very important. And everyone that I've heard in any kind of politics and punditry, the people who are serious about taking this seriously are the people who are saying that in the inner cities, the places that are very tightly crowded, these groups need to be watched. And then obviously just distributing that to for what it's
right there.
Yeah, well, it just says right there for the nationwide pandemic dashboard, which is a place you can go, right? Just to have like a thing. This is the place where you go to get that information. So all the stuff that you talked about earlier about creating like a how-to list for all the schools and businesses, whatever. There's also a place for the average person to go to just, what am I supposed to do? Or what are some of the statistics? Or can I get some information about this? Like a place to go. Because we have all of this chaos and there's no real, concerted effort to inform the people. If anything, there's been an effort to misinform the people and confuse the people because the last administration basically thrived in chaos. So this looks like it'll be a nice place for minorities to finally get the care they deserve and for the average person to finally get some information they deserve.
Yep. Take the next one, Keith.
Rebuild and expand defenses to predict, prevent, and mitigate pandemic threats, including those coming from China. Well, I don't know why they had to add that last bit in there. I really don't. Like, there's really no reason. The only thing I can think of is just kind of pandering to try to win over some Trump supporters who are like, I only support Trump right now because he's not a socialismist.
Yep.
They're going to have to put a line between Biden and China for the moderates.
Yeah,
They are.
And it's so stupid, but I hate the buzzword politics. But anyway, so let's get on to the points before my brain starts to eat itself here. Immediately restore the White House National Security Council Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense, originally established by the Obama-Biden administration. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I liked the next point because Trump was all, shitting on the WHO. Who was it? Right. John Oliver did a beautiful bit talking about the WHO and the reason why it's so important and Trump's attitude towards it. If you get a chance to check that out. So anyways, they say immediately restore our relationship with the WHO, which, while not perfect, is essential to coordinating a global response during a pandemic. And it is sad that has to be figured out, that has to be outlined.
It's such a nice piece of common sense. It's just a nice...
Yeah. Relaunch and strengthen U.S. Agency for International Development's pathogen tracking program called PREDICT. I'm not too sure how well that was doing, but I do recall that, wasn't it before Obama left office? Wasn't it Fauci who was saying that if there were a pandemic, the United States wasn't prepared for it? States not prepared.
Yeah. And I think that's So the idea here is we have two benchmarkable things. Establish whatever this long acronym will be that we won't come up with. There you go. And predict. Did they launch those two programs again? Yeah. Okay. The next one is implement mask mandates nationwide by working with governors and mayors, by asking the American people to do what is best, right? Again, he's going to ask people to wear masks, right? Okay, great. Everybody should wear a mask. Don't disagree. Every governor to make it mandatory in their state. Well, at that point, why are you telling the governors to do it? Just do it yourself, right? Make it a federal mandate. Why are we going back to local authorities for this bullshit?
I think there's actually an issue with that. So, like, part of the separation of powers in the executive rule in the government, I do think that there's an issue with there has to be some kind of agreement through legislation, maybe, or something, to be able to do a mandate like that. So it could be that, or it could be that if the independent governors, so like the Republican governors and the Democratic governors, all say yes to a mask mandate. You know what I mean? Like that kind of cross-partisan thing. There might be a better chance of people actually paying attention to it. Because today we ate pizza from a place on the way to get the van that was being worked on because I cut a coyote in half. Yeah, that was a nice ride. But anyways, the pizza place that my wife went into, nobody was wearing a mask inside.
No.
All just wide open, just easy coffee. So like...
we just had a 500-person no mask march, so I get it.
Yeah, I mean, so like we have all of these kinds of things going on where like you literally have to get both sides into it somehow. And it's probably not. I don't know if it's been hyper partisanized so much to be the point where I don't know if that's repairable. But like, if governors, like in Ohio, a group just filed to impeach the Republican governor. Republicans filed to impeach the Republican governor because he's taking the pandemic seriously. they're eating their own at this point, which is fine because the lieutenant governor, who in most states is the guy who takes over, he is also, kind of in the same mindset. But like there's going to be so many different changes when it comes to like whether or not we're going to be able to get people to agree with it. And so like, can the president just say all of us are going to do this, or is he thinking ahead and thinking maybe I need some Republican governors to ride along too?
I mean, it's politics, and politics is how much of politics is just trying to find a middle ground to get everybody to try to get along, right? And I mean, that's kind of the big hang up, and why we get so frustrated is because it's like every step of the way you have to find some way to compromise to accommodate the other person's agenda. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get your things done, or if they beat you in the next election, they're going to come back and they're going to use that against you. And then there goes your base, there goes your power, whatever. And it's incredibly frustrating about politics. It's why Hitch was saying that he doesn't trust politicians because their job is literally to get you to like them.
Yeah. Well, it's a popularity contest. This is the nasty part in the middle of exactly what politics is, which is one of the reasons why centrists and moderates are actually in the majority in most cases, because they're the people in the world who are just able to kind of look at like, okay, I understand that people on that side want this and I want this, and none of us are all going to get that same Xbox, iPhone, PS5, whatever stupid thing everybody wants. We got to do something in the middle. And there will always be people who are just absolute non-starters. There's no way to compromise. But in all reality, I really do think those are quiet. Those are louder people, and the moderates and the people in the middle who may not be as left or right as what you want. They're just quieter, and so you don't hear them as much. And I think if we could work on getting the Republican Party to just take this pandemic seriously and tell them, listen, we can go back to don't step on snack as soon as we're not all coughing to death. That's fine. And so I don't know. I'm hoping that early moderation in messaging will maybe get this pandemic under control. And then once it's back to politics as usual, we can take hard steps to the left.
Yeah.
So his next major standpoint is economic recovery, right? So, this was something he did talk about quite a bit during his campaigning. And I don't know how much I'm going to say there was a horrible economic recovery other than the pandemic, right? Like I don't like Trump, but I can't sit there and say that he ruined our economy. I think he piggybacked off Obama. I think that, he did temporarily, I can't say that with my tongue. He did temporarily fix a little bit of the economy by trying to bring things back and do things internally. The problem is if it's a sustainable economy, or if it's just this long-winded, attempt that essentially is going to screw us in the long run. So
it's a Fifth Avenue snort of cocaine off a toilet seat. That's what our economy is right now. It's a huge boost to people who are living in this fantasy economic world on Wall Street. That's what it is. Like the average people got a great boost from the stimulus. That helped so many people. It was insane how we saw people spending money. The economy saw a boost when that $600 and almost a UBI program started coming in and all that stuff. So like we saw a positive reaction to giving people money, and they spent it. They didn't hide it, hoard it, or put it on any place. They put it back into the economy immediately. And so Biden is probably going to ride a little bit on that, but he's also going to use the stuff from the Obama administration, because almost everybody that they've been talking about bringing into the cabinet are people who worked on the Obama recovery. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to push any real crazy buttons, and I don't think he's going to change too much. But like, we do need to work on a recovery, because the whole planet's going into a rough place, especially after the holiday season.
Yep. And so the 2 points I had written down is, and these are what I gleaned from this, is he's going to secure further immediate relief to working families, small businesses, and communities, and he will mobilize the American people in service of 4 bold national efforts to address 4 great national challenges, which sounds dumb. I don't know who his writer is, but they're very repetitive. It's like they hired me. I don't know.
It's simple.
Oh, it's a good thing you said it.
Simple can be frustrating.
So the big thing that we go to the one that's immediate relief, right? Is he's going to provide state, local, and tribal governments with aid they need so educators, firefighters, and other essential workers aren't laid off. All right, fair enough. I don't think this is benchmarkable, personally. I don't know how we would look at this, and I don't like that it's only educators and firefighters. He wants to shorten it that much. I think there's more to it than that.
I think
But-
educators and firefighters are two groups that almost everybody says, yeah, they need help. You know what I mean? If you put police officers in there, you're immediately going to throw out the people who want to defund the police. Blah blah blah.
Wow.
Those are two groups that most people in the middle will support: teachers and firefighters.
Yeah. So I don't think that's a benchmarkable point.
I don't think Mitch McConnell will approve it.
No, I don't think so.
Ah.
No.
But the next one is extend COVID crisis unemployment insurance to help those who are out of work. That's very benchmarkable. I like that. But it's not, I don't know what that's going to look like, because if he comes back with the $600 extra a month, or
No,
extra a week, is that good?
Paycheck.
Yeah.
I think it was per paycheck. Yeah, will he come back with the 300 that is currently at, or the 600? My guess is the 300, just because that's more extendable and long term. I don't think they'll come back as hard, but we'll see. It like I said, it depends on Georgia in the end. So provide a comeback package for Main Street businesses and entrepreneurs.
Don't call it a
Okay.
comeback. It's been here for years.
Well, there's that, but also it's like, what does that even mean? So like most of the businesses that have really been slammed on Main Street, they don't exist anymore. Like
Yeah.
they do not exist. They are gone. And so like you can't bring back the small ones that have been trampled by this. And you better not put big businesses in there. But I guarantee you the centrist nature of the DNC and the funding that they'll be in there will be a package financially for really, really, really big companies to get a little bit more tax incentives or whatever. So like that's an area where like that could be a very frustrating thing for a lot of us on the left. But like, come on, they don't need any more money. Have you seen Wall Street? It's just hit 30,000. Everybody thinks this is such a great thing. If this is a mainstream thing where it's you can't be Shake Shack getting $5 million, $50 million, whatever. If you're a national chain, you don't get any money. Sorry. If your business ends with Bob's or Barb's or something like that, then maybe. But like, that'll be benchmarkable because it'll be very specific and it'll be small amounts.
The problem is that there are already so many little loopholes for things like that. A friend of mine and I were discussing a lot of like different tax law, and I'll like 99% of it like right over my head. But one thing that he explained to me that made sense, for the most part anyways, was he was talking about how like you see a lot of like franchises for like McDonald's and things like that. And part of the reason why they do that is they have to renew their franchise agreement or something every day. And by doing so, they actually they make it look like the location doesn't make as much money. And another part of the reason why they do that is because that also works in their favor should they ever end up having to pay somebody out, like in the incident where the woman's super hot coffee spilled on her lap. So to try to avoid looking like they make as much money as they do, that's why they're like renewing that every day. And I'm really kicking myself for not writing down the specific phraseology.
It's the fancy accounting that you see throughout the United States tax code.
Yeah, and I mean it's predominant here too, and that's I think that's something that like in the long run would need to be addressed, because like we constantly see these big corporations taking full advantage of every little loophole. I mean, God damn it, what the hell was the company that got a big tax kickback just because they spilled all that oil? Is it Amoco? Was it
BP were the ones who dumped it in the Gulf?
Yeah, and they got a big tax break or a tax cut because of the amount of money that they put into the cleanup. So they're laughing all their way to the bank. And it's every time they turn around, every mistake they make somehow helps them get better or make more money or hoard more money, I should say. So it just, I mean,
But that's the
I
kind of
think.
thing that goes into a tax reform, a tax overhaul.
Oh yeah.
The most recent tax plan made all of these things easier. Biden isn't going to do a tax reform because one of the things you have to have on that is a presidency and the Senate, and then the House can fight a little bit, but they're not going to be able to do much. So this isn't going to be a case that'll be anything. So like basically just writing specific legislation to make sure that there is a cap to 50,000, 100,000. I mean, it doesn't even mean more than that. For most of the companies that they're talking about here, a Main Street business, if you gave Bill's Hot Dog Shack 50 grand, it's going to change everything because his total year in gross could be anywhere from 250 to 350, maybe $500,000 if he's really slamming. My small business that I used to have with my father, some of our good years were $350 to $500,000. Like. That's an insane amount of money for a small business with 2-3 people working. So that's 50 grand would be a whole year's salary for one of the employees in most cases and something like that. And probably even 2 if you're in a smaller business. So cap it at 100. Every little business or whatever, you're enabled to, give us a reason for whatever amount, but like 100 grand, that's it. Small businesses, let's see what you got. And then we can maybe for special cases get a little bit bigger or whatever. But he needs to be specific. We'll see what he does. Everything on here has been vague. But these are the kinds of things that we'll see as time goes on, whether or not it's, did you hit a benchmark? Did you really help people? Or were you just telling us things that we wanted to hear?
Yeah.
All right. So then moving on to the next one. Where'd my thing go? All right, there it is.
Yay!
Sorry. So then he said he's going to mobilize American manufacturing to ensure that the future is made in America and all of America. Sounds very Trumpish to me.
Pandering. I hate to say it, but I think it's just pandering.
Yeah, there's nothing to benchmark here. We're not even going to touch this. This is dumb. This is not understanding global, which is essentially what we had an issue with Biden when he was with, running with Hillary. The same thing.
Yeah, I mean, the manufacturing is a 20-year problem. It takes multiple presidents, takes basically the entire country to change what it does. We talked about this multiple times. That most of the American economic policy comes from speculation in stocks and bonds. It doesn't actually come from manufacturing anymore. So we would have to change what the whole country thinks an economy is. And there's lots of it, but there's not enough of a concerted effort to try to actually do anything there. I don't know. I would love to see it, but in 4 years, it's not going to change unless the Republicans and Democrats get together on that. I know. It's tough.
Sounds like commie talk.
Mobilize American ingenuity to build a modern infrastructure and equitable, clean energy future. He didn't say green, so the Republicans aren't immediately going to say no. But everyone I know that keeps talking about things like this, somebody that I know at work that I talk to every once in a while, and we have good conversations, and it's actually quite nice. And but he's like, they're skipping nuclear energy and transition, going straight into economic losses like solar and wind. And one of the things that he says everything has to be in an economic mindset. But what's the economic cost of the future being basically a ravaged wasteland? So they never take that future perspective into the calculus. But I would love to see more ingenuity and investment in that wind and green energy. But will Biden do that? I mean, how many of his funding PACs were part of the oil sector and part of the existing energy sector? I'm going to guess quite a few.
Exactly. So yeah, not super happy about that. Again, not
it'd be awesome
really
if it happens.
It's
I don't
just
know
not
if it will.
benchmarkable though. Mobilize American talent and heart to build the 21st century. All right. Scanning through here, affordable childcare. Okay. Elevate pay. Okay. Again, nothing. This is all fluff.
Yeah. Where's the $15? It should say 15 somewhere in there. You know what I mean? Why is that so hard? That's something that you can almost universally see through the entire Democratic Party, except the few people who are in charge. $15. That's a thing, man. That was a rallying cry at every single rally when it came to Democratic strongholds everywhere, and they can't even put it on the front. When we see the full actual 100 day, when they say it's their 100 day, we'll see. But I mean, that's the thing to get the progressives online. It can even say progressive to $15. It doesn't have to start out there or whatever. They just
Exactly.
It doesn't inspire me at all.
All right.
You need people like us to be excited about this, don't you?
You think so?
A little.
Keith, what's the next one?
It's a good question. What is the next one? We've got Make America Talent and Heart to build a 21st century caregiving education workforce.
Yeah.
Oh, after that? Oh, yay. Mobilize across the board to advance racial equity in America. We've seen again this year the tragic costs of systemic racism. Okay, it's nice to see that terminology there. That's cool. Biden believes that addressing those costs has to be core to every part of the economic agenda and also a distinct priority in its own right. The president-elect is pursuing a dedicated agenda to close the racial wealth gap, which, that sounds like something we could actually measure, to expand affordable housing, invest in Black, Latino, and Native American entrepreneurs and communities, to advance policing and criminal justice reform, and to make real the promise of educational opportunity regardless of race or zip code. I don't know how we could measure out that last one, but let's see.
Well, they basically, if you were born to a specific zip code, essentially what they're saying is that if you're born inside of a heavily populated metropolitan area, you will make less money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, what is it? The number one determinant or the number one correlate of your future socioeconomic success is based on your parents. Isn't that? Yeah.
Well, the same thing in Detroit. Like if you are from Detroit, if you're from a zip code in Detroit, it's guaranteed statistically that you will have a harder time getting into any kind of economic sustainability just because of where you are in the resource desert that you're coming from. Like it's such a huge deal and it's really easy to see. And whether or not it's ever actually taken seriously is another question. So like having the first African-American female vice president should be like, let's do this. So hopefully she can, because she's not going to take some passive back seat here. So this is kind of like going to be a co-presidency, I'm hoping, but we'll see.
We'll see. And for me, I don't want to spend any more time on this. I think this. If we had to give this a rating of 1 to 5 stars, 5 stars being we should have the other bunch, but had a lot of good plans versus a lot of fluff. This gets 2.5 stars for me.
Yeah, I'm
even you're nicer than I was.
Even here, he's sitting here saying he's going to make bold investments to speed up the timetable for many of the 10-year investments he's already announced. Like, come on, man. Like, put it in here. Where's my links?
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Well, this is the same kind of language that was used during the Obama presidency in the Obama re-election. And I mean, we saw a lot of like really warm, vague things. And then the oppositional Republicans stopped all of those things. So what are you going to do? I mean, it has to get done somehow. Or are you just going to say, hey, we wanted to do these things. They said no again. So nothing's going to change. And then in a few cases where we actually did something, they were done through executive order, which can be immediately rescinded if they're not directly written into law through legislation. So like there's all kinds of problems that we're going to run into. Whether or not we have an oppositional Senate or not will be a big deal. I'm really hoping that they can turn around because slim majority in the House, slim majority in the Senate, and a Democratic president changes the entire equation.
Yep. And if he doesn't do anything at that point, then I'm sorry. But like, like there you go.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got all
we've
three.
been arguing about, we've been arguing this point for a long time. And
Feet to the fire. That's what
I would say we should move to Canada, but I don't want to live with Keith in his conservative snow-filled area.
Right. Well, there's not much snow, but
there
right
will
now,
be.
anyways.
Don't worry.
Snow's in Ohio right now.
No, it's coming. It's a coming.
You already had snow on the ground. I got pictures. You sent them to me. You already had snow.
Oh yeah.
We've never had anything.
Oh, I
that
could.
stuck.
Oh, it's not still here. Like a good chunk of it's all gone. Like
I know.
it's amazing. It's December
Anyway.
too, as of tomorrow.
As of tomorrow, not today. The next thing is racial equality. But hold on. I guess let's go back a minute. Let's go back. Let's go back to the first one. What is your rating for stars 1 through 5 of the first set of plan for how much he's going to actually accomplish, or if it's just all a bunch of fluffy?
For me,
whipped
it's
cream
like
copy?
it's the exact same position you are, 50-50. Like
Yeah.
all of those things sound nice, but they're undoable if the election in Georgia doesn't happen
Yeah.
the way we want it to. They are
Yeah, okay,
somewhat
but hold on,
doable.
though. Hold on.
Well, that's what I mean.
This is
But
what
like
I'm gonna, hold on though. Hold on, because you have to look. We're rating this based on not whether it's going to be accomplished per se, or whether
Just what
he's
he's saying.
putting forth a
its
actual plan of
substantive.
action, or
Yeah.
whether it's just flapping his gums to the wind. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Okay, to the
Yeah.
first part.
Because everything's a fucking 50-50 without the Senate, man. Like all of it is.
Yeah.
Like that's not a benchmarkable thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
benchmarkable if you give me something I can actually obtain, and then if we succeed, it's positive. So did he give you something he could obtain in that first set of plans for COVID?
I'm gonna say 3 out of 5, simply because it actually says every American to wear a mask when they're around people outside their household, every governor to make that mandatory in their state, and local authorities to make it mandatory to buttress the state orders. I think that's a lot more of a benchmark, and that's a hell of a lot more than we got from masks that just don't work.
I'm gonna be so glad when everyone doesn't have their own Trump impersonation. Like,
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like everyone
Yeah.
has this. Everyone is like, "Oh, talk about the American president." Like they just have like whatever. Because like it was harder to do a W, but you
This
could
is
do a
terrible.
W. You could do it like a squinty-eyed W and say strategic.
All right, now how many's in a
Well,
Brazilian?
Well, you're pulling a
I'm
little bit of Ross Pro
underestimated.
there. You're pulling a little Ross Pro there. You got to be careful.
I don't know 3 of those words.
I know. You should look up Ross Perot. He was like an angry hardware store owner with a hammer. Look up Dana Carvey. It was awesome. But anyways, the Biden one's going to be a little bit harder because it's so blasé. Like it's not going to be one. But anyways, there. I kind of agree, Keith. You took me up 0.5 of a star because 3 out of 5 because he says racial equity. It says police reform. It says a lot of things that, Black Lives Matter was actually trying to get done. It's not showing us statistics and very specific plans and methodology that he's planning on using, but there is at least a mention of some of the things that all these protests and people that we will argue swung this election. Minority participation is probably the thing that made a big swing in this election.
Mhm.
I haven't seen the final numbers, but that's my guess. And so like Black Lives Matter and all of the people that they mobilized, it doesn't have to be just Black Lives, all the minority groups that were really involved and really thought this was a great thing to be doing. Just like the photographer that we talked about last week, white guy with a camera, but still super involved in this and making a difference and like participating. That Biden's at least giving them a little nod. Whether or not he comes through is a different story, but I'll give him 60%. That's okay.
All right, let's move on to the next one before you guys get stale. Get it? Crackers. Yeah. Anyway, so racial equality is the next one to come up, right? And this one, he gives some background. I think that's okay, right? But he specifically says this 2 different things, right? 2 or 3 different things. The first thing he specifically is calling out is what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Spruce up public-private investment through new small business opportunity. All right. Nothing.
Yeah, what is that? What does that mean? Like an easy access, low interest. Hey, small businesses, guess what? You get to take out loans at the same rate the big banks do at 0.5% interest. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. Reform
what does that mean?
opportunities to fulfill this promise. Okay.
Okay. I'm not familiar with opportunity zones, but I'm going to guess that they probably have like a small town economic, like a Renaissance zone where you don't have to pay any taxes if you build a business or start a business in that area. Grand Rapids has that.
Yeah, we had that in Zealand too, a little bit. Make a historic commitment to equalize federal procurement. Whatever
Procurement?
that word is.
Procurement, yeah.
I'm sorry, my tongue hurts so bad. It's not even.
Yeah.
No, not going down there.
Ensure the housing plan makes bold investments in home ownership and access to affordable housing. Again, great, but how? Tell me how.
Yeah, what's the plan to make that happen?
Real quick, the federal government's basic procurement or acquisition process involves an agency identifying the goods and services it needs, determining the most appropriate method for purchasing those items, and carrying out the acquisition. So essentially, he wants to streamline the government, make sure it's not as wasteful, because it's good at picking out the best price for the things it needs and not buying a bunch of trash and then losing it like the Pentagon. Bombs.
I'm pretty sure they lose it on purpose.
Or yeah, it's like they get double the quote and then they only deliver half the parts and then they just go meh. It's like the seagulls. It's like the seagulls in Finding Nemo. Mine. It's so sad that my life is basically been reduced to a series of animated children's movies. Whatever.
Moving on.
Parenthood.
Achieve equality in management training, higher education. I think, okay, I'm going to just say nothing can be benchmarked. Boost retirement security. Oh, okay, great. These are all great initiatives. Ensure workers of color are compensated fairly. Yeah, great, buddy. How are you going to do any of this unless you're going to dictate how businesses run?
Yeah, I mean, like all of that is like
these are unbenchmarkable. These are all bullshit. This is just
or
fun.
it would be such a huge sell. Like how do you specifically tell companies to make sure that they pay everyone equally? I mean, you start off with just women and then bring race into the situation. You have all of the problems when it comes to like schools having to have a mandate for a certain number of people, ratios that have to be admitted and everything. I mean, they've been fighting that kind of stuff for years. Like, I don't think a centrist government and an administration like what Biden's trying to put in is going to be able to push those things through. It'd be awesome, but I mean, you need a absolute majority mandate to be able to do that stuff. And this is a wish list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here's just looking at this and saying, even in the federal government, he's going to do this. And it's like, well, here's the problem. If we have unqualified people or we're not actually putting an initiative to go find qualified minorities to take these positions, you fail. And if we aren't providing healthcare and we're not providing a great environment for minorities to grow up in, you fail this, right? How many people do we know that if was given a little bit where they didn't have to work at 15 years old to make money because it's just them and their mom or them and their dad?
Yeah.
You know, like, and they all are making $10, $11 an hour. If they didn't have to do that, you wouldn't have some of the same issues. So people are having to make choices downline from this. This, to me, all of this, go fuck yourself. You could take all of this and say, I agree with you on every one of these things, but you ain't giving me nothing to actually do with it.
Well, the Republicans are just going to yell affirmative action and say it's not fair for working class white people. And then half of the country will be like, yeah. And so like, what are you going to do? Like this is a huge sell and it takes years, decades to change the mindset of this country.
Presidency, man.
Yeah. And like every presidency has this though. At the beginning of it, it's just this euphoric push of optimism. It's just nauseating. But I mean, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And then we'll go from there. That's basically how it's always been.
But none of that is pie. All of that is whipped topping. That's it. And I like whipped topping. Don't get me wrong.
No steak.
But
The cake is a lie.
No.
The cake is a lie. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Crap.
All right. Moving on.
Cake.
The next
Yeah.
ones, these seem a little bit more tangible to me, right?
Yeah, these are more substantive because they're actual quantifiable stances.
specific.
And exact that.
Those are complete sentences.
Well, they're
Nationwide ban on
complete
chokeholds.
sentences with an
They're
accurate
complete.
thought, a concise thought with a decisive act attached.
This is
Go
this
ahead,
is a
Keith,
specific
it's you.
police reform. Beautiful.
Yeah. So here we say, it opens with a nationwide ban on chokeholds, stopping the transfer of weapons of war to police forces, aka stopping the militarization of police.
Mhm.
Improving oversight and accountability to create a model use of force standard. I'm not 100% sure how that would work, but the idea of a standard, to me anyways, kind of sounds like there's some sort of a quantifiable measure or heuristic or whatever that they're going to follow to try to implement. So, and I know with the states being all about case law, having a standard or a case that they can build a standard off of is going to provide an easier way for saying, no, that cop acted in bad faith. They, hammer down, or that officer was protecting the people and was actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. Therefore, they were, yes, a little excessive or whatever, but they did not violate the standard. So,
well, good luck setting that. Good luck setting that precedent with the Mitch
yeah.
McConnell filled judicial branch right now.
All right,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Next one.
Creating a national police oversight commission. I think that goes hand in hand with the last one, but
Yes.
I like that.
Preventing crime and providing opportunities for all. Back to wishy-washy. Eliminating racial disparities.
Sounds back like his crime bill.
Yeah, offering second chances and reducing violence in our communities and supporting survivors of violence. The only part of that, the last 4 points here, is supporting survivors of violence. It's the only part of that actually seems like there might be something behind it, simply because there's a little more specificity to it. Ensuring fair sentences. Well, you look at a judge, a racist judge, they're going to think a black person getting a heavier sentence is fair. So that's really ambiguous too, at least from where I'm sitting. Maybe my analogy's off, but all in all, the last four, there was actual stuff here. There's just kind of like,
Well, I mean, one of the things that I would like to see is in addressing the basic fundamental issues as to some of the reasons why these things are things, like for the last four sections there, when it comes to giving basically equality under law, looking at things that cause these problems. So like the criminalization of drugs and stuff like that essentially specifically directly makes certain communities, and it criminalizes huge swaths of the population, and it's relatively unnecessary. And like there are very specific things that we could do with addressing the American police and prison machine and the industrial pollution complex in the U.S. And so I would like to see some of those things mentioned in there. Some of the stuff, I mean, it looks great on paper. It looks really nice. I don't know how much of this reform is really possible, but I mean, as far as a message, one, I will say that it's organized enough that it's like leaps and bounds better than the last one, the last administration. But that was, it's like they gave nothing. So
yeah.
All right, so rating. Let's rate this.
I'm staying the same. I'm staying at 3. I'm not interested. I'm not excited. None of this stuff really made me happy, but it's in an effort to be a little bit over 50% of meh. This is, I mean, there are some buzzwords.
Keith,
I'm sticking with 2.5 on this one. I'm just.
All right. You want to know where I come in? 1.5 tops, and that's being generous. Fuck that. That whole plan, that whole thing, there's only 3 good points in that whole thing. Like, okay, there's other good points, but there's only 3 plans. Everything else is bunch of BS. And here's my problem. Here's your rant we'll call it, right?
Uh-oh.
I don't have a prepared statement, but this is where I'm pissed because we brought somebody in from law enforcement. We brought somebody with a law degree. Exactly. We brought all this stuff in, and yet we can't come up with a little bit better. Where the fuck is my community policing? Where the fuck is my defunding the police? Where the fuck is utilizing that money to help support mental health?
Yeah.
Where the fuck is my social workers? Where the fuck is any of this shit? So you want to talk? You want to fucking talk here, folks? This is where I get pissed because I was waiting, and I'll tell you what. I was excited to go through this until I got to this section, and I'm sitting here furiously typing my notes, going. And when I get to this, I'm just gonna fucking be a bitch, and I'm gonna fucking be an asshole, and I'm not gonna know what to say because I don't see any of this as like. This is one of the most important things behind COVID. I will grant COVID first only because it's an immediate need. Once we get vaccinated and we see numbers and cases and people stop dying, it's not a need. And then this becomes the new need. And my problem is, and this goes back to, and maybe this is because I'm feeding off of last week's episode of how do we help Detroit breathe again, right? We sit here and talk about all of these great things, but yet you have a fucking administration who has zero fucking interest in actually supporting minority communities for the long haul. So tell me when we're going to get community-run organizations. Tell me when Biden wants to tell governors to tell people to wear masks. Why is he not telling governors, hey, create community-based law enforcement discussion committees? We don't have to defund the police, but let's move a few funds over to actual committees that want change. And this is where Democrats fucking lose, man. This is where they fucking lose. And if it wasn't for Trump, we wouldn't have a Democrat in office because of the pure fucking fact that this guy and his fucking vice president have zero interest in actually changing minority reform. And this, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, we could quote me 4 years from now, this will harm the Democratic Party to no extent. We're going to turn into the new Calgary, folks. We could have hashtag the new Calgary for fucking America.
The only thing we'll have to look forward. The only thing we'll have to look forward to in the United States is a rodeo. No, basically,
we got plenty of those, man. We got plenty of those.
So
with real cattle, and it's not cold.
I'm dying inside. Quote, don't mind me.
There's a direct quote, and it's Joe Biden basically says, "I promise to be a president for all Americans." And this isn't cheesy rhetoric that he's giving off. Literally, that was one of the things that he gave the most, is he said he's going to be a president for all Americans. And all of the stuff that we've just seen tonight is him trying to bring the moderates into order. He wants to get the biggest people. And I mentioned it. Tanner, you took a quick run off to go to the bathroom or take a drink or something. And during that time period, I basically said that this is an administration for the moderates. It is. It's for the people on the left who like guns, and it's for people on the right who kind of like globalization. They kind of like manufacturing just kind of from everywhere. They like Amazon, or whatever. Like, it's trying to bring those people all into one place. And all the things that I've seen tonight are all focused on those people. And so, like, there's tiny little tidbits for people on the left that are a little bit more aggressive, and there's little tiny tidbits that will assuage the fears of some of the people on the right, like the hard right. Some of the Trump supporters are like, okay, listen, he's not at least going to mandate everything. He wants the governors to make the decisions and try to get them all on board, whatever it is. But like, this is middle of the road politicking. I mean, it's kind of an effective method, and Obama did it for 8 years, and we saw economic recovery, and it didn't go to the right people. But like that, Biden is going to model off of something that works, right? It worked for 8 years. I didn't expect anything else, and so giving it a little bit over 50%, just because I didn't expect anything more than that, really.
I know. It's okay. You're like racist. We understand.
It's like going to Ant-Man with low expectations because it's Paul Rudd in a superhero movie, and
Oh,
being
oh.
undisappointed because you got Paul Rudd in a superhero movie and you were like, you know what? That was what I expected, and I was not let down with that, and I can carry on and not hate the movie.
Fair enough. All right, so the last point is climate change. We're not going to go through it. I'm going to give you a 0.5 out of 5, and we're going to move on because it's not worth having a conversation about. It's
Yeah,
just
he's not nearly progressive enough to. There's no Green New Deal in our future.
Nope. I mean, he's going to appoint John Kerry, folk, of a special task force
I got a Purple
for
Heart.
environment. So I got a Purple Heart. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not going to go through the climate change because it's not worth our time.
It'll be light years above what we've been dealing with the last 4 years, but it's still not going to be acceptable for people who really want to see immediate change, which is necessary for our world to continue to be a place that's habitable by humans.
Yep. And I think this discussion is really good because a lot of people, I've been accused of saying, well, you voted for Biden because you're blue. And I voted for Biden not because I'm blue, but because I wanted to get rid of Trump, who was a terrorist in office. That's what he is.
That's done.
I'm done.
We're gonna be back
I'm done
to being
with Biden.
Progressive
I'm not
jerks
playing
again.
nice. Yeah, like there's no niceness in this shell here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more I drink, the more I would just want to figure out how to get Bernie back in office and say, at least I have Bernie, and he's not my favorite, but he's the best out of all these other people. But we're gonna move past that because we have a Canadian segment that we didn't get to last week because Keith and his leg in the screen was not able to join us last week because of his COVID outbreak. So
Stupid COVID.
we're gonna give you the floor, Keith, and
Oh boy.
And yeah.
All right. So this is something that I've been looking at for a while and trying to create a little bit of a narrative of for myself, but just to try to understand what's been going on, because this is way out east, and I am way out west. And apparently I don't know my directions. I'm just on the other end of the country of this place. So what we have here is we have an issue going on with the Micmac people who live out in Nova Scotia. And yes, that is Micmac, not knick-knack, like the little porcelain figures that we would use to kill a cow if you ever wanted to go through a knick-knack paddywhack type of thing. Oh man, my guys are gone. Now nobody's laughing at me. I'm all alone. So what's been going on is there is some issues going on with the local Indigenous and non-Indigenous fishers. The TLDR version is that the non-Indigenous fishers are upset that the Indigenous fishers are allowed to act outside of the same rules that the non-Indigenous fishers have to abide by, such as they're only allowed to operate in specific seasons, whereas, as per decision that I'll get into a little bit later, the Indigenous people are given a little bit more freedom to provide a moderate lifestyle. Again, something that'll be talked about a little bit later, for their families, or a moderate living rather, for their families, their communities, etc. So they are allowed to, and the non-Indigenous fishers are getting really upset because they think that this is going to be depleting their resources, and they're going to have like no living left to make. So there's been a lot of hostilities going on. So this starts, the particular story we're looking at, it starts back on September 17th, when the, and I practiced this for about 10 minutes before the show, pronouncing it. And now for the life of me, it's leaving me. So it's the Speknekatik. Oh God, where's my pronunciation guide?
Oh man.
Speknekatik First Nation launches a. Yeah, I have a pronunciation guide sitting right in the other window, so I was just like, oh, that's okay. So they launched a self-regulated lobster fishery on September 17th, outside of the federally regulated commercial fishing season. So as I mentioned, they do have different rules that they abide by. They don't have to wait for the lobster and other fish to be in season, assuming that they are not abusing that privilege per moderate living. And then the Micmac are asserting their treaty right that they say allows them to fish when and where they want, which is true. So On September 18th, the next day, there are 2 people arrested on assault charges following confrontations between Micmac and non-Indigenous fishers on the wharf of a self-regulated fishery in Nova Scotia. 2 days later, on September 20th, a group of non-Indigenous fishers removed traps that were set by the Sipeknakatik First Nation in St. Mary's Bay, arguing that the Micmac fishery is threatening their lobster stocks, which again, not currently in season, and they're making this a conservation issue, although they're getting violent about it. September 22nd, Fisheries Minister Bernadette Jordan and the Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett affirm that there is a constitutionally protected treaty right to fish for the Micmac people in pursuit of a moderate livelihood. Jordan had previously said commercial fisheries cannot exist outside federally regulated season, but again, treaties have been established that this is allowed pending the moderate livelihood.
Are they just using this food just for sustenance, or are they using this to sell?
They are selling some of it. Again, they're providing not just for their food for their family, but they're also providing a steady income because this is their primary source of income. October 14th, so fast forwarding a couple of weeks here, a lobster pound, which I had to look up because I had no idea what the hell that was. And that's basically just like an underwater place where they keep the lobster, was ransacked and rocks are thrown at a vehicle. Rocks are thrown and a vehicle is set on fire at another pound in Middle West Pubnico, Nova Scotia. About 200 people were present at both incidents. And now these are the lobster pounds owned by the Micmac people. On the 16th of October, Justin Trudeau, our handsome prime minister who, saves the world, according to some TV shows, or the romantic versions of him. I know. That's why I said romantic versions of him in TV shows. Because
he's pretty good in a boxing ring, too.
Also, yes. Yeah. Trump learned that one.
Blackface, I don't know.
Yeah, we try to forget about that one. Embarrassing as hell. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, there's a reason why Trump couldn't do the whole, pull you right in, because Trudeau can deliver a punch.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was cool.
So Trudeau calls on the local police to ensure the safety of people involved in the self-regulated fishery. Then a lobster pound, one of the ones previously mentioned, was set on fire. And so things are starting to escalate a little bit.
So the underwater thing was set on fire because people think things through.
Yeah. Again, I'm not 100% sure the whole structure of it, but basically. So yeah,
like big news to me. I think you're pulling the wool over our eyes.
Yeah, we in Canada have different physics. We set things underwater on fire too, like our submarines. Oh God, that was the thing that happened too. Crap. So we're going to talk a little bit now, kind of about the laws going into this. So as I mentioned, the Indigenous fishers were saying that legislation was an infringement on their treaty rights because their treaty rights were inconsistent with a 1999 Supreme Court ruling that so this is Canadian Supreme Court, which is nowhere near the dumpster fire that is your Supreme Court.
Burn.
Not quite, almost, but not quite. It's actually ours is actually bigger. Trying to figure that out. So basically, it's the 1999 Marshall decision and the Marshall II decision, which were two of the same thing. Basically, one was just a clarification of the other. I'll let you figure out which goes where. And it's a recognition of the First Nations' right to catch and sell lobster to earn a moderate livelihood. The problem being is that that's never actually been defined.
Moderate livelihood. That's why I asked, are they selling it?
So there is speculation as to what exactly that means and how that can be interpreted, etc. But that's a little bit later on.
They bought a new pickup truck. That's unfair. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So from the Marshall decision, so Marshall 1, this is September 17th, 1999, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that a Micmac fisher was justified in fishing outside of season, so doing so in pursuit of a moderate livelihood under the Peace and Friendship Treaty signed in the 1700s. So we've given them rights since back then. We just never let them have those rights. Which I mentioned, the whole residential school system and everything else.
Oh.
So this became known as the Marshall Decision, but again, courts didn't define moderate livelihood. And then in November, Marshall 2 so November of 1999, Supreme Court ruling failed to solve everything. Following the ruling, of course, the Micmac fishers began harvesting lobster outside of the commercial season, as was their understood right. But there was a lot of opposition. There was violence, kind of like now, except 21 years ago, and they didn't have an outbreak going on between non-Indigenous and Indigenous fishermen. So finally, there was a coalition which applied for a hearing and stated that the Marshall Decision would not only affect the eel fishery, but others too, such as lobster. It did, which led to a clarification from the High Court. I don't speak legalese, so I'm not 100% sure exactly what the clarification is. I'm only going off of a summary. Was issued in November of the same year, and the clarification essentially said that the federal government could, in fact, still regulate the Micmac fishers if there were concerns about conservation, providing that there was consultation with the First Nations group and the government could justify those concerns. But moderate livelihood still remained undefined. However, there has been a suggestion that moderate livelihood be defined as, the average Nova Scotia income being, say, the starting point where they branch off of it. So,
at least providing some kind of a number. That's a nice place to start. I guess we could all have a conversation and instead of just lighting underwater things on fire.
Right? So basically, this Sipekanakitik chief told them that their license authorizes 50 traps per fisher, and that that's going to be moderate. And there's even a hang on, where's her title? Right. A Dalhousie professor who studies fisheries management says that there's no reason to suspect or believe that the Micmac fisheries are going to impact conservation or even harm the lobster stock. So basically, even though they're out of season, to allow their populations time to grow up again, recover and increase in numbers, the Micmac fishers aren't really going to impact that. There's not going to be a dent taken. Well, now things have kind of turned a little bit, and it is for the better. So, where the hell did my page go? Damn it. So now we suddenly see that there is a company called Clearwater Seafoods, which is now a partnership with the Micmac people.
Ooh.
So now, and this isn't just like a casual, mom and pop thing. This is like an actual, I think they're a $1 billion corporation.
Wow.
Partnering with the Micmac people. So now the Indigenous people suddenly have an economic foothold. And as I was reading up on this, there's a Twitter that I gave for my quick save a while back. Agent NDN was sharing some screenshots, so took a quick look through some of the reactions on Facebook, and can you guys guess what the white people were saying?
I don't want to say those things out loud.
But
I'm guessing it was bad. I'm guessing it was bad because I know what white people say when there are no people of color around, and it's terrible.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, oh great, now they're going to have a monopoly, blah blah blah, and I thought that was hilarious. I saw that
it was just economic based. Then I was like, oh, they're just sneaking in and taking over. Okay, that's way better than what I thought you were going to say.
That was one of the nicer comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Canadian white people are horribly racist as far as Indigenous goes. It's atrocious.
I think it's a white people thing.
We do love our racisms apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just a thing.
It's amazing when statistically you're closer to being insignificant than any other. Apparently you get a complex.
Louder creatures in the corner.
Yeah.
So anyway, so basically
the
social medias are reacting negatively to Indigenous peoples actually having an economic strong point in a place where they've lived for thousands of years.
Yeah. As you beautifully pointed out, they've stewarded the land for millennia. And they are the ones who probably should have had first dibs at it anyways, and a chance to set the guidelines, because they would have a better understanding of the needs of the area, how it would change. But we kind of
Or
pushed
they
them to the
lived
side.
sustainably there for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And then the Western industrialization came in and tried to rake everything out of the dirt.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a quote, and I want to end on that as a response to the people not being impressed by this, because now all of a sudden it's apparently going to put every non-Indigenous fisher out of work. You don't sell 50% of your company to somebody you think is going to pull you down. You sell 50% of your company to somebody who's going to lift you up. And when you're talking billion-dollar companies, that's kind of the perfect way to explain away why this is a good thing, and this is going to bring economic prosperity in for not just the Micmac people, but also the other communities that surround them, because as we all know, a small local economy will pay itself. It won't send money outside. It brings funds in, and it recirculates those through the community. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But basically, yeah. So Canadians are being racist, and but
It's a weird
we're not winning.
A tiny, really nice little case of corporate altruism, and a place where what is supposed to happen in capitalism, where the money is going to kind of trickle down to help people. It does happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
Companies like Costco and maybe these guys here. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so fingers crossed that people can pull their heads out of their asses, but with COVID around and not going anywhere anytime soon, who knows? Let's find out.
Cool.
It kind of sounds like your favorite show, BoJack Horseman, when they have like this episode where it's like, who knows what's going to happen? Let's find out. I don't know. Do you know? Maybe we'll find out next time here on BoJack Horseman. That's what this kind of feels like.
That sounds like a Dragon Ball Z episode.
Yes, exactly.
Except that we know it's not going to be this next 8 episodes are just going to be him watering the plants.
That's
if he powers up an attack.
All right, we're gonna move on from that because all right, we're moving on from that. Ready for our next segment?
Yes.
Boy, howdy. I feel like next time we do that, I need to have my aviators on, so when it comes back to us, I'm just sitting here like...
All right, fair enough. Anyway, moving on from that. Answering conservative questions. So this week's a little bit different. And I don't know if either of you actually read my outline for the week.
Kind of.
You did not. Don't lie.
No, actually, I did.
Don't lie to make me feel good.
Okay, I'll tell the truth to make you feel sort of good. I read it. I didn't quite understand it at first, but I think I might know.
So this week I dedicated the question directly to Trump. Why does President Trump not have standing in federal court? And I'm sorry, like I had to do this, and like I don't like to do this. I like to take the questions from the community and all of those things, but I'm telling you, it's really hard when he just like sets it up for himself, you know?
Word.
All I can say is that to have standing in federal court, on a court system and a judicial branch that your party has just absolutely jam-packed with appeals court judges and district court judges and just about every position where you're going to be benefited from the people who have been chosen to be in charge of that. And they still think that your arguments legally are terrible. Like the Supreme Court is going to be making some major decisions in the near future when it comes to like Pennsylvania and they still will probably rule against him because there is no evidence to what he's been bringing. Like you can't make some of these kinds of arguments.
I agree with you, but before we get into what standing means, do you want to see the video?
Oh, there's a video connected to this.
This is the video
Oh
that
my.
Trump actually came on his first interview.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But we're not allowed to put in our proof. They say you don't have standing. I said I'd like to file to the lawyers. I would like to file one nice, big, beautiful lawsuit talking about this and many other
A beautiful
things
lawsuit.
with tremendous proof. We have affidavits. We have hundreds.
His
and
hair
hundreds
is so
of
cut
affidavits, like
out
the people
right
that
there.
You saw the other day in Pennsylvania.
The lines are so
Willing
sharp.
to sign under penalty of perjury, you go to jail. Willing to sign. Unlike Comey, who didn't go to jail for lying, by the way, and McCabe, who didn't go to jail.
What
for
does that
lying,
have anything to
which is
do
an
with?
amazing thing to me. We might as well bring it up. But under
You might as
perjury,
well bring it up.
you
Yeah.
go to jail.
It's
We have
amazing.
hundreds, getting to be thousands. They're coming in all the time. And these are respected people. These are people that are putting their lives at risk. And they don't want to take the affidavits. Then they say we don't have proof. I wanted to file one suit, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, against, and put everything in a one simple suit. And they say, sir, you don't have standing. I say, I don't have standing. You mean as President of the United States, I don't have standing. What kind of a court system is this?
All right.
Okay,
So
standing. Now let's do the standing
Yep.
definition.
Yep.
He's saying he has standing just because he's the president and he says so. Like, what kind of 5-year-old logic is that?
Let's find out. What standing
8-year-olds.
means. What is the
don't
legal?
abide by that logic?
I'm assuming Tanner has that. What's the legal standing definition?
I
If you'd
do.
read the notes.
If you had read the notes, they were in there.
Oh,
In law, standing or locus standi, which is actually really cool, and I'm going to say that from now on, locus standi. Do you have locus standi, daughter? Do you have it? Do you have locus standi? If not, no treats for you. Nothing.
You
doesn't work.
are
if you
going
just
to
start
wind
yelling
up
tiny bits of
in
Latin.
a
at people.
kids group for weird things my parents say, and I cannot wait to find that go viral.
It'll be a good.
Just
I'm
saying.
helping them get a podcast going. It'll be their podcast of the future. Like shit, my dad said. You ain't gonna fucking believe this. Shit, my liberal atheist dad said. There you go. That's even better.
That's
Um,
true.
Like,
Anyway,
we should probably change our podcast name to Locus Standi. By the way,
All right, I'm actually in
pretty
positive
good one.
for that. That's a positive affirmation on standing on that right now. Anyway, the term is for the ability of a party to demonstrate, get this, demonstrate to the court sufficient connection to and harm from the law or action challenge to support the party's participation in a case. Standing exists from one of three causes. The party is directly subject to an adverse effect by the statute or action in question, and the harm, and this is great, and the harm suffered will continue unless the court grants relief in form of damages or a finding that the law either does not apply to the party or that the law is void or nullified. The second cause, the party is not directly harmed by the conditions by which they are petitioning the court for relief, but asks for it because the harm involved has some reasonable relation to their situation, and the continued existence of the harm may affect others who might not be able to ask a court for relief. We all know that that's not happening right here because there's only one president.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The third one is the party is granted automatic standing by action of law. Under some environmental laws of the United States, a party may sue someone causing pollution to certain waterways without a federal permit, right?
Mhm.
Those are the three ways you can stand. Three.
Yeah.
Now, I can stand with one leg for about 30 seconds. I can stand on my hands
Yeah.
for 0.2 seconds. and I can stand on my head.
I would
for
pay
0
money.
seconds.
I would pay money to see you try to stand on your hands. Anyways.
How much? Hold on. We're derailing the whole thing. How much?
Oh well, I'll put
How much?
$10. I'll put $10 down to
No,
say you can stand
10
on that table right there behind you
No.
with your hands.
Well, first off, that's even more dangerous than standing on the floor with my hands. So the table costs you $100 because that's what a good bottle of Lagavulin or Macallan would cost me.
Dios mío.
On the floor, it's $60. So like, see, I could just like
I got a
here, I
toonie.
could change my camera.
Toonie.
Yeah,
There we go.
Is that $60?
We'll
You
do two-tone.
It's 1/30th
No.
of $60.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even a 30th of $60.
It is a 30th of 60. It's 2.
But in American dollars, what is it worth? Come on, let's actually be frank here. If you
Pennies,
give me
pennies.
60
No,
bucks
I'm
Canadian, it's worth like 45.
Not Frank, buddy.
I'm Frank, your buddy. I got it. But I'm telling you, it's worth $40 fucking American. It's bullshit. Hand me $60 in cash. I will right now stop the podcast, turn my camera, and attempt to do it right now.
Yeah,
$60.
I'm not
goal.
going to spend that much money to watch you
goal.
hurt yourself. We should definitely see if
Really?
anybody in our group wants to see us do strange things and make requests like for money. Will you do those things?
I feel like
I
we
know.
need an OnlyFans
We
for
open that up to the internet, and she's like, "Okay, guys, what do
Nobody-
you want us to do?"
Dude,
Because I'm not going to spend
buddy,
$60.
Buddy,
I'm not gonna
nobody's
watch
pay
60
$60 for an OnlyFans account where all I do is stand on my head and follow. Nobody's
Are
gonna
you
pay
serious?
that.
Have you seen what's on the internet these days?
Yes.
You
But
can call,
nobody
we can
hands
call it
$60.
Folly McFallface.
It's free and it's weirder. Yes, and it's not. It's definitely not a boat.
All right,
you
I'm
know?
just saying, if you want right now, you have my PayPal account. You can wire me $60 in 30
Put it
seconds or
in
less.
the thing right there. There.
Yeah.
Put it in that bar right there. Put your link to your PayPal. Once you reach 60, we'll I even have like a counter going.
We promise. We promise.
Yeah, this
we
feels
won't
like for the
tell
Patreon
we won't.
content.
We promise we won't tell the Bitcoin spammers what your PayPal is.
I don't know if I believe you. I'm gonna put the company one in there because it's just easier.
Oh,
I'll put the
the
money back in
company
the
one.
show. I'm not saying I want this for personal gain. You know, I'm just saying, you know, you could do that right now, and I'll happily try and stand on my head. Fuck, for $60, I'll do it like 5 times. I'll fall over 5 times for
Oh,
$60.
God. Yeah, there goes the night.
Anyway, thank you for derailing the show, Hannah.
It happens.
I'm just saying,
It happens.
don't
Trump has
don't
no standing.
challenge me
and
to do
neither
something
do you.
without paying me. That's all I gotta say. Like, I do lots of things for money. Just saying.
You do way more for less. Yes, I know.
Yeah, I'm on the show with you for free. So there you go. See how that works?
You're
right.
welcome.
Now, let's go back to the standing. So I gave you the answers. And so the whole point of this, and I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself because when I heard that, when he did his interview and I heard that, I almost just shit my pants right on the chair. I'm like, what? Are you this dumb that you're on national TV right now trying to claim you have standing because you're the president of the United States? That's a dictator move right there. That's like Kim Jong-un
Emphasis on
saying,
dick.
you didn't bow to me, therefore I want you to jump up and all fives and throw money into the air and give me all of your food. That's what that's like. It's ridiculous. You know, like,
Well, it's a person who
ludicrous to me.
doesn't. It's a person who doesn't understand the founding fathers' intention for the term president. They couldn't figure out what they wanted to name the leader of the executive branch, and it took a long time to figure that out. And in the end, they decided something. We want the guy who's in charge of the executive branch to simply preside over the executive branch. He presides. He is the president. He presides over the executive branch.
That's the root of that word.
They wanted to give a non-authoritarian, non-kingly, non-specific, and special title to the guy who's in charge of the executive branch, and they decided that word was simple and clean and easy enough. And in the end, the English language and the precedent that we created, legal precedent that we created globally, Now, a ton of countries throughout the world look at the word president, and it's now become something that's completely and totally different from someone who simply presides over something.
From the president.
So that's, I mean, in the end, that's that. So Trump doesn't understand the history of what his position is, as do a ton of people throughout the country in the United States and globally for that word itself. And it's a frustrating thing, and it's sad in all reality that
Mm.
nobody either educated him or he simply ignored any attempt to educate him over something like that.
Doesn't Trump pride himself on his ignorance and his laziness?
No, he prides himself on,
Or is it
the
just
fact
his
that he can
laziness
pretend to be the common person, even though he's clearly not.
and has no idea about being a common person? Yeah, Trump not understanding something. It's like saying water's wet. Duh.
I'm sorry. I know this is an easy one, but like
I know.
I
Like
couldn't
legal
help it,
standing.
because it just like it's like, what the fuck, man?
Well, some people
'Cause
might
it-
really be like, he's the president. He has standing. He made a claim. It's a legal claim. He's in charge of
And
everything because he's the Geodis. He's the God Emperor of the
And-
United States.
now I want that title. Damn it.
Dude.
No, you don't. You don't want that. Stop it.
I don't want the power. I just want the title. The power is just
Anyway,
too much.
we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on
Doesn't have
to our
standing.
science segment for the week. The universe
have
is
standing?
glowing, and why?
So it's kind of like the cosmic microwave background. I don't know if you guys remember when that was discovered. It's a super huge deal of like some of the white noise that your old TV was showing when you guys were looking at channels that probably weren't supposed to be allowed on your old cable box. But
You mean the ones
in the
my
end,
parents didn't pay for? It's not that we weren't
yes,
supposed to look at
it was like
They just weren't paid for.
yeah, the squiggles. You were looking
Well,
at the
you know,
squiggles. But anyways,
if you flip fast enough, Hannah, if you flip fast enough, you could actually get some of the image. You know that, right?
if you blink quick enough, you can see something. Yeah. So
I watched Friday
basically,
the 13th a couple times like that, just standing at the box going back, forth. All right, sorry. Moving on.
when you're basically trying to see human anatomy in ways that you're not supposed to, you get some white noise in the background. That white noise, the cosmic microwave background, is basically existing radiation left over from the Big Bang, and it's a thing that was discovered in the Bell Laboratories, and I can't remember the names. I want to say Warner. Either way, it's very clearly detailed all over, and it was a really big deal when they discovered it. I mean, they won the Nobel Prize from it. So, like, the guys that discovered it didn't know what they found. Some scientists who said, "You guys found what?" And then that kind of grouping got together, and then it was a Nobel Prize because it was evidence and proof of a cosmic microwave background, which would be the natural residual energy left over from a Big Bang. This is kind of tied to that. So the question is the universe is glowing, basically, as Tanner so eloquently said, is that some astronomers have wondered about all of the dark space in the universe. Is it really dark? Like we talk about space and the space between planets and everything. It's completely and totally void of everything. Is it void of light, though? Is it completely and totally, truly black? And Todd Lauer, an astronomer at the National Science Foundation, their National Optic Infrared Anatomy Research Laboratory, so basically NOIR lab in Arizona, they asked it, does it put out a glow? So they used the New Horizons space mission, which has been taking photos in deep space and everything, and they basically try to find the darkest absolute nothingness in space photos, and they did things to specifically remove certain amounts of light in any sources where they knew light was coming in. So like a galaxy in the general area, they're trying to remove those things, and so they try to get the darkest, blackest, completely total light free image they could. And what they found was there's still some light. It's unaccounted for, and it's a problem because it's kind of like you saying that, like, I've accounted for everything, but it's still super bright. And like it's a tiny bit of light, but it's a huge amount of light if you're expecting zero. And that was kind of a big deal because we're trying to find out what dark energy is, what dark matter is. There's a bunch of stuff that we don't know. So there's like huge amounts of energy in the universe that we can't find. And so this is another possible explanation for light that we don't really know why it's there. So because it's dark, as far as we know, dark matter and dark energy don't actually interact with physical matter that we know. And so, well, does photons and does light actually interact with it? We're not entirely certain. So basically what these images did was the best thing they could do to do blank sky. And then the fact that they removed any of the mysterious light sources or anything but the mysterious light sources. They basically were able to equal all the light coming from the known galaxies, and that gave them a more exotic potential explanation. It's the phenomena out in the universe that creates visible light that we don't know about yet. And so this is associated with dark matter. And in the end, these components that give off light, there's something that we can really get a good sense of and understand why there is so much light. But it's essential to understand how much light there is that needs to be accounted for. So like there were earlier studies of this exact same thing using less effective methods, and they made an approximation. This is just a further specific and a more accurate analysis of that. But in the end, the findings are the same as the previous ones. But since this is more accurate, this is considered, a discovery. Because the last one itself was, and now this one is also considered a success. And so they're saying that space is still dark, even after all this analysis, but it's still pretty dark, not completely and totally dark. So in the end, this is just a really cool discovery that's kind of potentially pointing to things that we don't particularly know about when it comes to the universe, the cosmic microwave background, any of the residual energy from the blackness before the Big Bang, what caused the Big Bang, leftover energy. We're reaching into the primordial ooze of the universe, which is a really cool thing because in the end, we talked about this earlier about discoveries when it comes to science and the vaccinations and any of that kind of stuff. It's going to be forward progress, right? We might not see as fast of a growth, the scientific analysis like benefiting people and just totally eradicating this virus immediately. This kind of thing here, is the universe glowing? Yeah, it kind of is. Are we sure why? Not particularly. Is it going to help in the future? Probably, because in the end, we see a forward march. We see the scientific method working, and that's a pretty cool place to see. It's like just see it working. I love seeing things that it's like, okay, it's not as dark as you thought it was. Why is that a big deal? And meanwhile, there's like some nerd in a dark alleyway somewhere just freaking out that it isn't perfectly black, because that means, according to thermodynamics, all energy must be conserved. The first law of thermodynamics, man, anything that you do has an equal and opposite reaction as far as energy is concerned. Like any energy that goes into a system, the exact same amount comes out or gets transferred into something else. And then the second law of thermodynamics, which is one that people in religion love to point to, is that entropy, you lose some energy. Therefore, the universe is going to have a cold death. Energy doesn't ever organize itself. It only dissipates. And you violate the second law of thermodynamics if you have organizations and humans and evolution and all that kind of stuff. Well, this is a pretty cool example where thermodynamics is like, well, we have to find this new solution to it. So like, I love the fact that we're finding problems in here, but all of the current laws are still supporting this information. It's just whether or not we can find a solution for some of this residual light and extra light left over. And in the end, I think it's going to be a benefit to just about everything we look at as far as like galactic science or whatever. Like we're pushing the boundaries when it comes to what we're going to be doing in the near future as far as like Earth-based science and physics, and we're going to be looking at really, really big questions. My quick save tonight actually is kind of going to tie into that a little bit, like big problems and really, really far out thinking. This is just a fun, cool little tidbit of science that I really enjoyed reading when I was eating a sandwich at lunch the other day. So
why don't you jump into your quick save?
Cool. Yeah. So anybody that's new to the show, quick saves basically just us quick saving like we are in a video game of something that we really like. And quick save for me for the week is DeepMind's AI. So DeepMind is a company that Google bought, Alphabet Corporation bought however long ago. And this company hasn't really done anything really impressive. They haven't done anything that's like, wow. They played Go, the Asian board game, and then it's like it's super complicated, super difficult. They didn't think that humans could ever be beat by artificial intelligence because it's such a personality based game, blah blah blah. And so like artificial intelligence that are able to play games, that's cool, but when's it going to turn into something real? Well, this company put together a protein folding simulation. There's a 25-year-old program or a question that's been nagging at science in general, and it deals with protein folding and being able to predict what proteins are going to do. So just from the very bare bones, protein folding is a process by which a protein gets its functional shape or conformation. It's a self-organizing process that's starting from a random coil of polypeptides. They fold into their characteristic working shape, and this structure is held together by hydrogen bonds. And so predicting those things, what's going to be happening, is super hard, super complicated. PlayStation 3, this old beast right next to me, is when it first came out, they had a thing called folding at home, and they were trying to get people using their existing Wi-Fi and their unlimited data networks to, okay, if you're not playing your game, leave your PC on, leave your PlayStation 3 on, and let it run this app that you could turn on to it called Folding at Home. And in 6 months of that protein folding program running, they solved a genetic disease that they hadn't been able to solve for years, decades, however long it had been around. All this simulation and using all of these CPUs that were super powerful for the time. And so this program here, this DeepMind AI, used a program called AlphaFold. And what these people did was essentially prove to 87%, I believe it was, with 87% accuracy, the folds that were going to be happening from a simulated series of protein folds. And the accuracy is way higher. It was started at 40, 30, and 50 to 60, and now up to 80s. And so in the 80 percentile range, you're looking at being able to accurately predict what's going to happen with a whole bunch of really important things. And so like genetic medicines and things like that, like where you're going to be able to predict how cancers form. You're going to be able to predict if you have a cell that has this genetic coding. So they do a genome sequence on your body, and they're able to get some specifics, and they can fold it using the artificial intelligence, and they can see what your percentage likelihood of developing a particular cancer based on the prediction and the simulation of your proteins folding. Once they've entered them in the machine, you can predict if this person's accurate likelihood of getting X disease is really high or really low, and you can take predictive and preventative measures. Like, this is a massive thing, and they've been trying to solve it for a long time, and DeepMind has done that to a very high degree, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. So we may see genetic and CRISPR medicines coming in based on some of this stuff that Google's DeepMind AI and it's just general artificial intelligence, what they're looking for. So if you look in our past, I did a thing about artificial versus general intelligence where I explained the two, and they're trying to create a real general artificial intelligence, which would be the Skynets or whatever. So like, this is pretty impressive stuff.
Recording our faces, and eventually we're going to get a term.
Oh, they're already doing all that. They're doing the face
Cellar Door
stuff.
Skeptics.
Yeah.
We ruined the 2020 election. They're going to come kill us. We're all dead.
Yeah. They're already measuring our faces because we click the accept button when we download those apps. Oh, wait.
Not with my mask. Anyway.
So, yeah.
Keith,
that's my quick save.
Your quick
Yay!
save.
Mine is a fun little video in keeping with the idea of finding something that kind of makes you laugh. This is the Rock Obama. I happened upon this a couple of weeks ago, and it was supposed to be my quick save last week, but I wasn't here last week, so it got held over to this week. It's something fun to watch. He's sitting there. The guy Andy Sam. Is that Sandberg? No,
Yeah.
Andy Samberg, he sits there and he daydreams Obama getting mad and turning it into, instead of the Hulk, the Rock, and how he deals with GOP senators who refuse to work with him is he throws them out the window.
The eyebrows.
Yeah, it's hilarious just because it's The Rock. And I mean, he does have a little bit of a there we go. Yeah, see? There you go. And I mean,
seen this yet.
he's a big man. He's even bigger now, but yeah. So I really enjoyed it, and it kind of like parrots a couple of thoughts that we have watching politics, where it's like, can we just throw this guy out a window, even if it's just the first floor window? So
The Rock 2024.
Well, I mean, honestly,
That's awesome.
if you want to get a cult
No.
of personality and an actor in
No.
there,
Oh,
not that I'm saying you should.
Not anymore.
I'm just saying,
I think
if
we'll
you
stick to
have
the Plutonian, or the So the Plutonian philosopher kings. I think that might be a good idea.
all right.
So,
My
anyways,
quick save for the week
Oh, man.
was
Ooh,
Sarah
good one.
Fuller makes history as the first woman to play in a Power 5 football game. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the fuck Power 5 was. I read this article. It means nothing to me. Like, and I'm not saying I don't like sports ball. I just don't really care that much. Like, I'll watch it. It's great. It's entertaining to some extent. People hitting each other seems silly to me. I don't know. But what I
It's
like,
basically, yeah, they're athletic conferences. So like,
Yeah.
if whatever school you're in, it's like mine used to be the GLEAC, the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. Like all the schools have their things, and the Power 5 are pretty decent sized one. They're not Big Ten or Pac-12 or whatever, but they're up there.
well, hence why they're the 5 and not 10. Because if we lived in Trump's world, 10's bigger than 5. Therefore, when you anyway, moving on. What I liked about this article is we've talked about this before about women being in sports, and we've talked about the inequality that we've seen in male-dominated fields. And there's been big arguments on both sides because there's good people on both sides that say that, women shouldn't be and women should be, right? And because of the physical difference and all these other things. And with this aside, here's a great example of somebody. Oops, sorry. Somebody.
Starts a YouTube porn video.
No, there's no porn. I don't watch porn. Anyway, there's
Allegedly.
like the idea behind this is that, like anybody can do what they dream about doing. And I really like the fact that I don't care what you want to say about the equality aspect. She did this. Like, this is
awesome.
amazing. And her being able to, and I guess I can play the video. I'll just read it.
Yeah.
I mean, her being able to, she's kicking the ball. She's a part of the daily,
Jesus.
huddles. She's, knocking it down the field. Like, there's no question that we should at least be having a conversation about what is sports and how do we mix the two in some way, shape, or form. That's all I gotta say.
People always love to say the equality. Like the girl can kick the ball just as good as the guy. Whoever's best gets the job. Like that's awesome. That's so cool.
Hell yeah.
Canada's response: Hell yeah, hell yeah. Let the girls play.
Yeah,
okay with
absolutely. I mean, there's so much of the argumentation against women playing sports with men. It's if you're worried about the physicality of it, well, why does there need to be such a strong element of physical violence involved? I mean, don't get me wrong.
Let's just play hockey.
Well, there's another thing. It's like I wrestled in high school. I wrestled in middle school, or whatever, and they had just started letting girls and women wrestle. And when I was in a freestyle tournament, when I want to say like 14 or 13, I actually lost to a girl.
Wow.
She had been wrestling for like 10 years. I mean, she was amazing. She was a contender in like state and everything. Like, I lost to a girl at wrestling. Like, this is a thing that happened. And there was a girl on my wrestling team. My sister was on a wrestling team, but there was another girl on the wrestling team who was also, she actually went to state. Her name was Lindy Balchusitis. She's the first girl to ever go to Michigan State wrestling in the boys full on
Wow.
regular wrestling. And she didn't win either of her matches, but I believe since then there has been a girl who's actually gone and won. And like those kinds of things are things that like it's not so much a sex thing or a gender thing. It's can you go and do just as good as everyone else? And it's awesome to see. I love it. I know it's a cool thing that I've experienced, and I think it's pretty cool for everyone else to see too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because anything men can do, women can do.
Yeah.
In
And I
term-
think
in
I think
term-
that's the whole point of that, you know. And the exciting thing for me is just to see somehow how we can obtain a little bit of equality and bring about the conversation again to push the envelope.
Hell yeah.
With that being said, it's been another long episode. Hannah and Buddy were very long-winded today with their anti-rants, you know.
I am not sorry.
Anyway, thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next week with another Cellar Door Skeptics. We are going to actually have a COVID vaccine update next week with our favorite scientist, Abby.
Ooh, I like her.
I'm hoping she'll join us at our allotted time, and I won't have to do a pre-recorded interview. But we'll see whatever fits her schedule. But as of now, we're planning on doing a segment at the beginning of our show with her. So if you want a COVID vaccine update with somebody that knows about vaccines, has worked on them, and helped create them, join the club, because that's the person that we're going to see.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you all so much. Have an amazing night, and we'll see you next week with another Cellar Door Skeptics.
Ugh, can't do that.